Welcome to Rise Above the Grind with the Consultress. I am Alissa Bakar, your hostess, bringing you awesome conversations from the front lines of business and evolution. During this age of disruption where nothing's going back to normal and everything's up for review, we entrepreneurs get to be on the cutting edge of the new normal we get to create. And that requires us to reflect a little bit about old paradigms, things that no longer work, things that no longer serve us. So today I have the extreme pleasure of having Ryan Reilly as my esteemed guest. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
I appreciate it, Alyssa. I'm really excited about this. I think we're gonna have a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we are birds of a feather, we enjoy music and thinking differently. And so that creative expression of who we are, it kind of leads us into how we serve. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so delighted to have you here for this kind of like upending, irreverent conversation around the grind. Out there in this world, you hear rise and grind and like high five pounds, like go ahead, get that grind. But also I find it for myself to be somewhat depleting. So if it's always grind, then what else is it? It's going to lead to burnout, as one of my friends told me the last time we were recording. So Ryan, when you hear the term grind, how do you define it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I appreciate you giving it to me to answer. So the grind for me is kind of a fathom seat, right? It's a fallacy where we feel like the grind is busyness. It's us always getting out there and doing it. For me, it's how am I spending my time effectively? And many times people will look at that and say, well, he's not grinding because he's out golfing or because he's doing something on a Tuesday or a Wednesday that's not typical, like going snowboarding or doing something like that. But what I have found is that my grind happens when I'm the happiest. When I'm in the flow of things, that's because I've given myself the time, the space, the energy to be able to grow. And that's not going to be busy for me. And I can admit that right now, I'm in that grind because I'm looking to rebuild another arm of my business. So I'm really deep into it. And I have made some mistakes. My calendar is a little more tight than I want it to be right now. And I find that's because I fall into those old tendencies that you were talking about, which is that grind mentality. Like I have to do more in order to get more when I know that I really could probably do less, but do it better and gain more from that experience. So that's
Hmm.
grind for me. I hope I wasn't too weavy there.
No, listen, so what I'm picking up from what you're putting down is grind can be good when you have focus and intentionality of where you're spending your time, but also it can be depleting. You could feel overwhelmed, stretched too thin, and knowing when you're in those places. So like I heard you say when I'm in flow and I feel like I'm on the grind, that could be like a snowboarding term, like I'm on the grind, like I'm hitting that half pipe. It could mean something really great, but in our culture we hear I have to grind, and that's what I really heard underneath that is when we feel the pressure to put more on our plate, to overexert ourselves, to continue to do more than what we feel is either fair or at our capacity, and it creates that lack mentality that I'm not doing enough, that space of like I have to stay up till midnight to finish this because nobody else can do it but me, or and so where have you experienced this like depletion style grind? Because I think I could be wrong, but in our culture, people who are like on grind as their OS, that's their operating system, oftentimes I find they have a departure from who they really are. They almost like sacrifice themselves for this like mythical unicorn creature that actually doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, let's step back for a second and think about it. Awareness is the first step to improvement, right? Being aware of what's affecting you, how it's affecting you, and really being aware of where your goals came from. So many times we're in the grind working on an expectation that was set from somewhere or somebody else.
High
It's
five.
like that's what we have to do in order to feel successful, to be able to look successful in front of other people, to be able to make somebody else happy. When really it's about understanding who we are and what our level of success really looks like. For me, that was a really hard thing to identify that money is a byproduct of what I make. What I make is igniting joy. I get to work with people to ignite joy, to help them to reach another level of sales success that's different. And I get that jolt when that happens. What I figured out was that I had to concentrate on the things that really made me ignite joy, not the things that are going to be burning out. Now, you have to do them first, right? So unfortunately, we all have to learn. It's a learning curve. You have to be able to do some grinds and really get into it to figure out, ooh, I don't like that part of it. And then it's that idea of, should I either A, find someone else to do it for me, or B, not do it at all? But you have to make those decisions based off what your goals are first. So specifically for me, I made a goal that I want to be successful by meaning I'm home. I'm here. My children see me. I can play with them when they get off the bus. I can get them on the bus. I'm the fun dad that goes on field trips. I have that flexibility. The moment that that flexibility leaves my business, that's when the depleting stuff comes through. I'm no longer fulfilled in the position because I'm too busy or doing too much, and it's not fulfilling what my ultimate goal is, which is to be free.
And I love that you're not only defining what the grind is and how to, work with it, when you go knee deep and submerge yourself in it and come out like, okay, I either have to stop doing this, delegate this, or just, put some different prioritization on it. But also you're kind of touching on a more global issue is, is success personally defined for you? So the grind might just show up in that negative, vacuous way when we are trying to get to some definition of success that's not personally ours. It doesn't provide us meaning for what we're doing. And that was something that I really had to overcome in my growing up professionally, was that like working a 9 to 5 while paying for babysitting for my kids was not success to me, but it was success, in terms of what other people thought I should be doing. Alyssa, why don't you just go back to the bank? They said. Alyssa, why don't you just go, back to that lending institution? And I'm like, I could, but it's going to suck my soul dry, and then I have nothing left for my kids, and I'm going to probably become the worst mother and monster alive. So, like, my definition of success started to emerge, that it was a priority to make sure I knew what I was working towards, because without that central line, you don't know what's distraction and what's calling you.
Well, you make a really good point though, because oftentimes we forget that the grind really is important. So let me just step for a second here and say, I'm not saying that you can't or shouldn't be grinding. You absolutely should be pushing yourself to the max to be successful. And that sometimes we have to make sacrifices to be able to do that. However, the sacrifices of our mothers and fathers that they made may have shown us the light of that we don't need to make that many sacrifices specific to the non-negotiables. But you have to be aware of what those non-negotiables are for you. And that transcends to everything, working with clients, working with yourself, and making sure that clients are aligned with that. The first thing is doing stuff like this. Make sure people are aware that if and when you work with me, if my kid needs me, they're going to take priority. I'm going to go ahead and do that first because that's where I've said is my non-negotiable.
Yeah.
However, outside of those hours, in the 9 to 3, my kids get on the bus at 8:45, they get off the bus at 3:30. From 9 to 3, I am in the flow. I am yours all day. If you're one of my clients, I am grinding in those hours and I'm being the most effective and efficient person I can be. But that's because I know that what I'm working for is to stop working at 3 o'clock and do what I have to do to be able to have fun.
Absolutely. And that external pressure of what success looks like gets to be redefined for you when it's convenient. This is what I love about entrepreneurship is we're taking initiative to be able to define for ourselves what's most important for us. I remember when my kids were super little, I had to create such a flexible schedule that I could be on the phone anywhere that had service, serving my clients as I was taking them on hikes, as we were at the beach. I needed to be able to plug and play and have a really fluid schedule. So the clients that came to me then were willing to say, yeah, I can slide back, I can slide up, we can change, we can riff. And it created a measure of creativity in my business that allowed everything to flow together more nicely, but it absolutely broke the paradigm of sit down, shut up, and behave, because I was breaking all sorts of rules. And that came with a measure of like, am I doing this wrong? Like this, like internal questioning of, well, everybody says this is how you have to do it. Everybody seems to be happy working in this prescripted way. What's wrong with me? So I think as I as entrepreneurs in our identity, sometimes these deeper questions come up like, am I on point? Am I being valuable? And some of it comes from the grind pressure, like you said, when you're inside of the duck and cover moments where you have a deadline and things have to be produced, but coming up for air and saying, okay, I don't want to do that all the time. That was necessary now. How do I set myself up to do it less or to not have this responsibility moving forward? And being willing to look at, maybe I'm the bottleneck here. Maybe this pressure that I created was self-inflicted.
Maybe I'm the
Where
problem. No.
you're right. Mirror, hi. Ugh. Um, so, have you found that doing the work personally and aligning yourself with the ability to, create your own boundaries and work inside of the parameters that feel good and are defined by you to be successful? Do you get the feeling or the sense, or maybe even the reflection and the like confirmation from your clients that that allows them to free themselves up from old thinking as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes what we do is we forget that we are in charge of our own destinies, but also that other people are watching that and wondering how are they doing it? What are they doing differently that I'm trying to do? And in my business as a consultant, I'm constantly showing people what I, through my experiences, have done for performance. But everything comes back to that word, performance. If for any reason you're not performing at the level that you expect from yourself or that others expect from you because you actually have performance metrics to hit, then that's on you to change. The reason I never get mad at someone who's performing is because they're doing everything they can to be able to get it done. If that's 1 day a week, great. If it's 5 days a week and 12 hours a day, that's unfortunate, but that's the grind that you're in. And if that's not going to get you to the performance, it's on us to look at it and say, what is it that has to change? Is it a behavior, an attitude, or a technique that I should be working on in order to be better at my position? Is there
Behavior,
something I should change?
behavior, attitude, or technique?
Behavior, attitude, or technique. I call that the BAT triangle. Think about a stool, right? If the stool has 3 legs, if one of them's missing, what happens? You fall on your face and everybody has a good chuckle, which is okay to fall on your face, but then you recognize that there's one area you might want to get stronger in. Is it a behavior, an attitude, or a technique that's holding you back from getting to that next level of success? I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but I know for me, it was all about behavior and attitude. The technique was something I could always learn through books or through classes. But for me, the mindset of who do I need to be in order to be successful, that was a huge change. Not what do I need to be, but who. And then the behavior was, Alissa, you and I are a lot alike. It's not easy to sit down and be structured on, I'm going to do X, Y, Z every single day to be successful. Habit forming for me is very tough. So I have to be specific on what I'm going to commit to and then who I have to be in order to commit to that.
And I love that, you're making a conscious effort because you've reflected on what has not worked. Like the grind itself, like the feeling of like, man, I'm working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and I feel like I'm not gaining any momentum. I'm not making the headway I thought I'd make. Like this is what we entrepreneurs are constantly up against. So you've given us a tool, a technique, not only to use grind as a way to say what I should be or shouldn't be doing, but it's a door in to expressing what is it that I need to be focusing on now? Is it my behavior, my attitude, or the technique? And this is a way for you to create more sustainable success, more habitual rhythms, and like more honesty in how you're going about what you're creating.
Right. I
Are
mean,
dogs
we are a
totally
whole person.
pulling away the sound here? Are
Say
you
that again?
are you hearing my dogs barking right here?
I'm not. No,
Good.
no,
Awesome. Continue.
no, I mean, to think about the whole person, right? I've always heard, and I never really listened to it until recently, that happy employees, make better employees, and better employees make better companies. Me myself, I wasn't ever unhappy in the business that I'm in now, but I've been unhappy in other businesses. And what I figured out too is that the way that I do that is by paying attention to the whole person. My connection to the world, my connection to my people, my connection to health and fitness, all of that was kind of like a byproduct of like, I'm too busy to do anything for myself. And now what I realized, if I don't do things for myself, I'm going to be miserable in whatever I do. So I had to create that whole person approach of like, I'm going to do what I need for myself. And sometimes that means I'm taking off Friday and I'm going to do nothing on Friday because that's what I need in order to perform on Monday. And that is hard for some of the older generation and or some of the new generation that has this idea that you need to be working hard 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, otherwise you're never going to be successful. That's a hard chain to break.
It is, and it's so ingrained in us. Like I talk about the industrial age mentality, and that is it right there. Work yourself to the bone until you're about ready to croak, and then maybe take a vacation. That whole paradigm is breaking. That is what this age of disruption is bringing for us now, live. We all have the opportunity, whether you're in someone else's business or in your own, whether you're in a sales capacity or an operational role. This age that we're entering is all about being more of who you are, where you show up in your professional and personal spaces. Like this is not just a conversation that allows us to see how things used to be done in a particular space, like business, although we're all obsessed here. That's why we're here. Me, you, the studio audience, all of us. But it gives us an opportunity to say, what has worked in the past, what got us here will keep us here if we're not careful. So, I mean, this has been an amazing conversation, and I want to make sure that anybody watching the broadcast or listening to the podcast, where people can go to find more and connect with you, Ryan.
Please reach out to me any point. LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. I put a lot on LinkedIn because I think we should have an outward facing persona, but also listen, I'm open. My phone is my phone. I don't have two work phones. Number one, because that's annoying. Number two, because I am who I am in business and in life. You can always text me. I'll throw my number out there anytime. On LinkedIn, it is my real email. It is my real phone number. Call me.
I love it. This is why we're friends. This is why we vibe. And this has been an amazing conversation. If you're listening to the podcast, stay right here. We've got another episode lined up specifically for you that takes this conversation and dives it a little bit deeper. So stay tuned.